locally. Former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang announced his bid for New York City mayor earlier this week. And Andrew Yang joining me now live to talk about this decision. Good morning to you, Mr. Yang. How you doing?
Good morning. It's great to be here. I am so pumped for Joe's inauguration. Let's put this Trump nightmare behind us.
So talk about your decision to enter the race right now here in New York City, because, you know, Mr. Yang, at one point it was reported that you could serve in a Biden administration. Was that true?
I was talking to the administration, but at some point I said to them, look, my city is in crisis. I'm going to head another direction. I still have many friends in the administration, but New York City right now is at its darkest point in a long time, and I want to help accelerate our comeback. The fact is, even as this vaccination process is occurring, we actually need to lead and make New York City the comeback city by having a passport on your phone that allows you to say, look, I've been vaccinated. That way we'll be able to get together, get our businesses and offices and Broadway shows open more quickly. That's one of the reasons I'm running for mayor. I think I can lead us out of this mess faster than some of the other folks.
And I will talk about the vaccine in just 1 second, but I want to talk about what a lot of New Yorkers were listening very close to, not only during your presidential campaign, but now during your mayoral campaign, the issue of giving every U.S. citizen some kind of money, $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. Do you plan to bring the same concept of universal basic income to New York City, just on a maybe different, smaller level?
I am thrilled that now what seemed far out at first has been completely mainstream by the fact that our government sent $1,200 checks to tens of millions of Americans. We may be getting another $2,000 pretty soon, thanks to new Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, way to demote Mitch McConnell. But I am going to put those very measures into effect in New York City. My organization distributed $1 million. We're going to up that to $1 billion a year to alleviate extreme poverty in New York City. And the fact is, we'll get a lot of that money back, because when someone hits our streets, we're spending tens of thousands of dollars per person per year. We'll actually save a lot of that money by keeping people in better situations.
Yeah, do you have a dollar amount that people would get here in New York City?
So the number of folks in extreme poverty in New York City are approximately 500,000. So it's around $2,000 per year per person, but that amount's going to be either higher or lower based upon their circumstances.
Yeah, so in order to make that plan a reality, right, you need that federal aid. So how close are you with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, President-elect Biden and Harris? Will there be a clear line of communication to talk about federal aid for New York City, since it's really a partnership?
I've been talking to different members of the New York congressional delegation. We have to make the case that New York has been sending $25 billion more to the federal government than it's been getting back for years, and there is no national recovery without New York City. So I think my relationships in Washington will help us make that case, but there are a lot of folks who are making the same case, including Chuck Schumer. I feel great about the aid coming from the feds, because now we don't have Mitch McConnell saying no to everything.
You know, I want to talk about what's going on here in New York City, because you're entering the race at a very tumultuous time, right? So many people fled the city at the start of the pandemic. You yourself criticized for leaving New York City. You came back. How do you plan to get people back?
We have to clear out the obstacles that are making it more difficult for people to live, work, send their kids to school, have their businesses here in New York City. And I think I've got the right perspective, because I want to work with small business owners to try and keep their doors open. I want to try and reopen our schools safely. I mean, this pandemic is deadly. Over 25,000 New Yorkers have lost their lives. But there are ways that I think we can speed up that recovery. We have to give people reasons to be excited about living in New York. That's the mission for the next mayor. And I believe I have the right combination of skills to speed us up. I sound a little bit like Liam Neeson on that one. Well, I've got the right combination of skills to lead New York out of this mess.
You know, and Liam Neeson's big on trains, right, in his action-packed movies. So let me go to subways right now, because you spoke about the vaccines. Many people are saying that the subway should be open 24/7 to help people get vaccinated as well. You are also saying that you would like to have control of the city's subway system. Should it be back to 24/7?
So it being back to 24/7 is one of the things that I think will make everyone feel like New York is back. And certainly if people need the subway to get to vaccination locations in the middle of the night, then it should be open for those measures. I think right now we should be realistic about the fact that subway ridership is down 60% from its peak. We're still missing tens of millions of tourists. So there are issues with the subway to me that are bigger, frankly, than restoring those nighttime hours. But when New York City's back, it should be 24/7.
Yeah.
I know that there have been many times, not to make light of my 20s or whatever, but like when like you really want the subway to be open late at night.
Well, seriously, oh boy, do I remember my 20s in college time in New York City, always taking the subway at 2 in the morning. Safety, a big concern for New Yorkers, Mr. Yang. In November, there was this 112.5 increase in shootings citywide. You're entering the race at a very difficult time for the city in terms of crime. I've asked every mayoral candidate on about keeping Police Commissioner Shea or going in a different direction. What would you do?
I think we need to model ourselves after the federal government and have a civilian head of the NYPD. That's what we do. In DC, you have a civilian head of the military, and I think having a police commissioner that's independent of the culture that's developed there will help us make policing more effective, but also curb any civil rights abuses that people have witnessed here in New York. You're 100% right that when I talk to New Yorkers, crime and public safety are top of the list, or second or third. So we have to do a couple things at once, and making our police department more effective and responsive should be the top of the list.
And lastly here, sir, you mentioned in your campaign video, and I'm going to ask you now, how do you plan to save, this is big, how do you plan to save the New York Knicks?
Well, one thing I will say about MSG is that they've been getting a sweetheart property tax exemption of $40 million a year. And when challenged with the fact that, hey, maybe you need to pay property taxes, they actually threatened to move, which just made me laugh out loud.
Well, there's this possibility, right? There's this possibility of eviction in 2023. Where would they go?
Yeah, exactly. It made no sense at all. I'm sure New Yorkers had a good laugh about it. But I will say that the new the management and coach, Tom Thibodeau, seems like a great coach. The team's been playing hard. They're young, scrappy, and competitive, and seem to have a plan and direction for the first time in years. So I'm optimistic about the new management team. Leon Rose seems like a really smart guy.
All right, Mr. Yang, there is a lot to talk about. We're simply out of time here. You're welcome back along the campaign trail to talk more about a whole host of issues. We're simply out of time, though, but there's plenty more to talk about. You're welcome back anytime.
I'd love to come back. Thanks, Dan. Have a great day.
Okay, you too, Mr. Yang. Thank you.